You're listening to the Sales to Success podcast with Pallavi Gadepalli, a practical take on sales, product, and customer success. This week, we'll talk about how go-to-market and sales has changed in this new AI era. I wanted to invite my friend and colleague, Bill Bragg. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Pallavi, thanks so much for having me. Glad to chat with you this week.
So you see how vendors keep hitting your inbox every day? Like, what has changed in how they reach you? Like, what are the patterns that you're seeing today?
A lot of suppliers with the best intentions send a lot of emails and a lot of marketing engagement types of notes on social media. And there's so much to consume. It can be excessive in terms of the content and the information available. And at the same time, it's actually wasting your time to consume most of it, because at the end of the day, you have a business to focus
on. Alternatively, can you share an outreach that really caught your attention?
It's a large cloud company. They've done a really good job of sort of understanding what a business strategy is that I was engaged in. They did a really good job of understanding how their portfolio would be able to support that, how they brought their experts to the table to have the conversation. So it wasn't just this plethora of engagement with really a lot of context. They understood more about my business than maybe I did at the time, and that's why I started to have a conversation with them.
If you were to think about what's the one thing that a rep could do to catch your attention, it would be, just to play back to you, it would be that they already had the context of what you could have been looking for based on different things that they researched on, and come back to you with exactly that. They would already know the focus that you have.
They would, and they would have a really good sort of view of the decision-making process that an executive leader has to go through, or a business person has to go through to kind of get to a decision, right? That decision process isn't the executive leader alone, right? Our corporations, companies were built on people, and we are successful because of people and through people. So part of what I would have to do in my role, and I'd like to do, and I want to always do, is make sure I've got the right set of stakeholders, the right consensus structure, so we can assess together and really understand the risk we're all going to be taking on by doing this and going forward with some type of investment, right? So reps that understand that are really helpful, because they come to the table to help me do that, not just leave all that work kind of on my shoulders so they can get a win out of the deal.
Right. So you indicated something that was super interesting. How would buying committees actually work in a large organization? And you've been in different companies, so it doesn't have to be one company. How do these buying committees operate? Who weighs in? How do decisions form?
I think every company will have their own view of that. My experience is the finance organization is obviously plays a very big part of this, right? Because we need to be able to continue to fit to the right operating model, the right P&L of the corporation, for sure, right? A secondary part, obviously, is the functional engagement for this, because information technology is everywhere in a business. All business leaders have their hands in it, which they should. And that community itself, right? But the interesting part is data and information moves throughout the entire corporation. So you cannot make these decisions in silos. You have to make them in a somewhat sort of architectural view of, like, how does this corporation run with its information and its systems? That's a clear, sort of key function that the CIO can really be helpful in, is to help the business see that picture and help the business architect it, which then, I kind of bring this back to the rep, right? Is don't just sell me a little piece of the pie. Let's talk about the whole thing and how it's coming together for the investment. And at the same time, it helps me take out maybe redundant cost structures or redundant things which are now no longer necessary. I went way a little off topic there, but that's kind of my view of what I think successful consensus stakeholder engagement, supporting the CIO in that, is really about.
It's really cool, though. So now, because we are in the AI era, tell me, how would an AI assistant or an AI product remove the pain for the reps before they meet you? How can they use AI, and what would those steps look like in your mind?
That's a tough question. And at the same time, there's so many examples of where that can come together. And I think they all, first of all, want to really understand your business. Back to my core point, right? So how do they get there? How can AI bring together sources of information to really educate them a lot faster than it takes them to have to do it in maybe their more traditional methods. I think a second part of the cycle is to really then have them collaborate together to help me collaborate and build consensus around what we're trying to do. A company will come to the table and they'll bring their expert to the table, and then an expert just wants to learn about your problem. And like, well, why are you even here? You should have already done that homework. So I think AI in relation to the homework that those account teams need to do is super ready for disruption.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. I love it. So what would be the biggest mismatch? Like if you think about it, what would be the biggest mismatch that, let's say, an AI vendor is claiming and what buyers like you actually see?
So often it's positioned as a functional or capability type of enhancement that's going to change something. But the reality is to really have the benefit of AI as a capability inside of your business, it's really about reinvention. It's if you were to start from day one with nothing there, what is the invention process you're going to go through about how that segment of the business is going to function with AI, rather than trying to layer in on top of it. And I think I'll just say, I think it's a bit of a challenge for some of the existing big platform SaaS companies because we're trying to layer in when the reality is they need to blow some stuff up.
All right. So tell me, in terms of looking forward or looking ahead, 12 months out, what buying behavior is actually going to change first?
The idea that all of this sort of outbound marketing and engagement stuff, that just has to kind of like stop. It's not effective. You're targeting the wrong people. You're just collecting a lot of wasted information that I don't think really helps either you as the customer or you as the supplier and strategic partner. I think the second part of it is I really want to talk to companies that have that good understanding, going back to my earlier point. So how are they going to talk to me about that and tell me about that? And I think that's going to change too. It's not going to be the types of forums that we've traditionally looked at. We've looked at maybe, asking Gartner to be an expert on something or Forrester to be an expert on something. I think, again, that's going to change, and there's AI that's going to is dramatically disrupting that, because most recently there's some stats out there about 25% of buying decisions are now being handed over to GPT engines rather than these sort of authoritative sources of the past. And I think that's going to dramatically help the customer. But at the same time, it's also a risky area because the concept of trust comes into this, and what is trust in this next stage, and how is trust established? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's a really important point, and I'll explain a couple of things that were interesting, because people who are evaluating vendors today, like yourself, CIOs, they do go to ChatGPT, but we all know ChatGPT and other LLMs are non-deterministic, intrinsically non-deterministic. So what would happen is people are probably going to go to different agents like Claude and Perplexity and ChatGPT, get their initial information from there, and then go to non-intuitive sources, which is TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Fortunately or unfortunately, the whole go-to-market motion has thus been disrupted. So when you get information from all these sources, there is still a brain behind that to say which one will work best for you. And that's how I think the world is changing. Now, this impacts the vendors too, because now the vendors have to be if the initial research is going to ChatGPT and Claude, they have to figure out how to surface themselves in that. And that needs a very big inbound go-to-market motion that's evolving right now, which is called AEO and GEO. And we'll talk about that in the upcoming episodes. Finally, in closing, Bill, what would you like every rep to remember from this conversation?
Know me, know my business before you really engage. Understand what we're trying to accomplish. If I have to spend the time to kind of go through that with you, given all of the pace of our business cycles these days, you're not an effective supplier, not an effective partner with us. The ones that do, they're effective, and they're the ones that actually get the time.
Well, thank you so much for this engaging conversation. I really appreciate your time. Looking forward to having more podcasts like this. Thank you.